I first met my co-host when she had a syndicated talk show all about sex. Sex with Sue McGarvey. And I am the milkman John Milky, host of The Milkman Show, heard on radio stations across North America. And my home base, blasttheradio.com. We're glad you're here. Let's get turned on. Looking all amazing in passion red and lipstick to match. Hey, Sue McGarvey.
Good morning, sunshine.
All right, it is Turned On the podcast. Can we begin? I put the survey out there on the weekend on the all-new blasttheradio.com website, which is my home base for all things to do with my radio show. It was just a Frisky Friday question, and I'm sure the results will not shock you. I'm kind of upset to see this. So the survey question was, how many times a month do you have sex? We talk about this all the time. Never. 40%. 40%.
That's not good. The world is a better place when everybody's boffing. That's not good. Okay.
1 to 12 times a month, 30%. 12 to 20 times a month, 10%, and 30 times a month or more, 20%. But I want to zero in on that 40% of people who are not having sex. Well, but why would you lie? It's an anonymous survey.
I am certainly in the 10 to 12 range, and I'm a sex therapist. Now I'm getting older, but and I used to do it, 5 times a week, but not anymore. Yeah.
And I will recuse myself from this.
Okay. We are not going to ask Mrs. Milky. It's like keep her privacy. And but you know what? I think it's interesting when people talk about amounts and averages 2.1 times a week. I don't know what that 0.1 is, but we've when it amortizes.
It's just the way the math works out.
If you should be 8 to 10 times a month, that should be and it doesn't have to be intercourse. Tell your partner to lie on their stomach and ride their back. Put a toy between the two of you, or just borrow their hands in the shower. Things like that. That counts. I would say as long as it's an orgasm, I don't care how you're getting it. An orgasm is an orgasm is an orgasm. To me, that constitutes sex. If you are having an orgasm together, or one of you is, and you're both participating, that counts.
So less about the sex, more about the sexy time.
Yeah, it's all sex. It doesn't have to. People, equate sex with intercourse, and that is not true. It's about pleasure, and and it doesn't even have to be about orgasm. It's about pleasure and about taking the time to have a sexual experience that you wouldn't have with anybody else unless you play. But this is your partner, your significant partner, or other partners. So you're saying I'm having sex with a variety of people. It's about intimacy with me. So if that's the case, then that works.
By the way, I love in the background when we have these conversations, all the questions that are coming your way. I can hear your phone. Bing, 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 bing. It's question after question after question. No. This is Turned On the podcast. We don't turn anything off. We like it turned on. But all this to say, if people do have questions, what is the email address again, please?
Sue@sexwithsue.com. And before we leave this, I'm strongly encouraging everybody to schedule it, to make a real effort. It's February, Valentine's month. Just, send your partner a note and say, hey, can we get it on? We're turned on today. The other piece is there was we talked about this a couple weeks ago about how about pets in the bedroom is affecting your sex life. New survey 2 weeks after we did this, but it says 63% stopped having sex because of their pets. Kick the cat out because they like to climb. The dogs are whining and barking at the door. They're being super protective and growling at your partner for jumping on.
Sue,
something about it.
I walked into our bedroom the other night. There wouldn't have been room for me if I was half my size. There's the dog, there's the cat, there's my girl, there's all of her pillows.
I've seen your cat. It's the size of a small calf. Yeah.
Appropriately named Moo.
Moo the cat, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's no room in the opportunity. Just no.
Yeah.
But how
did you sleep on the couch, the spare room, or did you finally kick the dog out of bed?
No, I went to the spare room. But you know why this happens, right? Because people they can't cope with the meowy cat. They can't deal with the yappy, whiny dog. So they give in. I know.
So I'm just saying, pay attention to that. It's like, are you kidding? And again, there's every study done since the dawn of time have talked about how sex is good for you. And if it's not in your life, it affects blood pressure and cholesterol and heart levels. And the blue zone about people living the oldest, one of the top things was community, intimacy, connection, a little bit of alcohol, locally brewed. Those were then the top four things you can do for your health. Forget, walking. Yes, that's important. And drinking water. Yes, that's important. But it's all about, are we getting touched? Because we are tactile.
All right, Sue, next up, you have a listener question regarding cross-dressing. I may actually be able to be of some assistance on this one, so let's hear it.
Okay. So somebody wrote, again, we have lots of anonymity, and that's perfectly okay. Sue@sexwithsue.com and remain anonymous,
Yep.
saying, I have discovered that my partner really likes cross-dressing to the point where some of my clothes, and I'd always wondered about it, had gotten missing when I was away and they had been trying them on. And I'm really puzzled, a little bit off put, and trying to figure out how I feel about all this. Do you have a
Okay.
thought? And I went, absolutely, that it's and some people say, oh my God, is my partner gay? And, she's like, I know he's not gay. And I'm like, it has nothing to do with your orientation. There's tons of straight guys, and by tons, I mean a good 10% that like to the fabric, like the feel of fabric, whether it's
Yep.
silk or rubber or leather or plastic. Oh my God, the plastic and the nylon. There's a whole bunch of guys with the nylon. And it is an indelible pathway. It's considered a fetish, but for a lot of guys, there's a difference between transvestite, which is a straight man wearing or a bi man wearing clothes of the other gender, and wanting to transition to be, in terms of being a different gender.
The gap there is night and day.
Night and day.
Absolutely.
And people don't get the difference between transsexual and transvestite.
Right.
So there's that piece, and establish that it has nothing to do with their sexual orientation. It has to do with arousal because of fabric, usually because of something that happened when they were a child or early teens. It's an indelible.
So you're exactly right. So let me weigh in, and this is why I said I may be able to be of assistance here. Not to say that Sue can't be, because Sue always is. But when I was a young boy, I discovered pantyhose. I don't know why, whether it was in a magazine. I think probably in magazines. I remember finding a bunch of magazines in a shrub one time, and I was always drawn to the photos of the dominatrixes. And I loved the whole theater of it, including the stockings, the nylons, the lines, the French seams, everything about it just it captured my imagination. And so I went to my mom's drawer once and I grabbed a pair of pantyhose because I wanted to, touch, feel, and see and experience. And of course, try them on. And I remember, and my mother would be mortified to hear this, but she got very upset, of course, having found her pantyhose under my bed. And I was very quick on my feet, and I said, "Yeah, well, Mom," because of course I've always been a radio fan. You know those little windscreens, those little pop stoppers, those filters they put in front of microphones. You see singers with them all the time. I said, "That's what I'm using them for. I'm making pop filters." Good excuse, right? But no, Sue is exactly right. It's the textures. Women's clothes are fantastic. They're so different than men's clothes. There's a huge curiosity there. And yeah, when I got invited to do drag for the first time, it took me right back. And I absolutely went full on in. Not because I want to transition into being a female at all. I'm a very straight man. I love women. But that chance to do drag introduced me to the feel of the stocking, of the underwear, of the lacy garments, of the dresses, etc., and the makeup, etc. And it's exciting, and it's very, very different from what the average straight guy experiences every single day. So don't be afraid of it.
No, don't. It's really hot for some people. Now, some women, because, when I say if your sex life is boring, bump up the sex roles, wear the really masculine, football shirt and have clean sweat and have
always wear the football shirt. Always.
I
love the football shirt.
The more you can wear pink and have the French lines and all of that, it will often sort of revitalize your sex life, because for whatever reason, that masculine and feminine energy. And for women, I tell them, if they're single and they're, big successful women, and as cool as that is, for a lot of men, it's the masculine energy that they're not attracted to. The more they can be feeling, and I always say, play the Southern Belle a little bit, just for fun, and see what happens. And the minute they do, all of a sudden the guys are like, whoa, who is that? And it depends because it's 80-20. 80% of men are dominant and 20%, well, the numbers change, but less than that are submissive and like the domination.
Right.
But either way, play with that energy. And that's what this is. And not to be afraid of it. If every day and wants to go to work and family and whatever, you may want to have a conversation because it affects, real life and how that dynamic. And that's a
100%. Time and
different
place.
conversation. That is different. That is wanting to live more is a different role. But if it's just about play and about sex, bring it on because your sex life is gonna go through a major bump because they are gonna be so revved up.
Yeah. I love your whole commentary there. You're absolutely right. You know what? Because my wife went and did this, and she's not afraid of where this could this cross-dressing drag queen thing could go. She went and bought me my stockings.
Obviously, I had a girl, Sue.
Right. So she's like, and it helped that she also worked at a department store in the ladies' wear section. So she knew, but she just wanted to make sure I had, decent quality, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right?
Have,
Almost, yeah.
have fun with it. Enjoy the theater of it because that's exactly what it is. It's role play.
It's role play and it's fetish and it's fantasy and yeah, enjoy it. Don't get beat up about it. A new survey that's come out post-pandemic, okay, that they're saying that 46% of people are more experimental after the pandemic, that they are more, willing to be open-minded, and 19% of them are willing to be in an open relationship, which is massive from before and after. They all went, life is short, pandemic, I was stuck inside, conventional dating isn't working, WTF. Like, COVID has caused a reconsideration and what it means to date.
What was the age group of that survey? Do we have that?
In fairness, it was under 45.
Okay.
Casual boundaries, it's sort of, and that whole idea, I went to see my son over the weekend who's at University at Queen's, and he was talking about his situationship, and apparently he had to tell his father about what that was and define it. But
I'm not sure I know what that means either, by the way.
it's basically, instead of, they're not considered a girlfriend, it's somebody he's seeing. They both hook up because it works because they're in the same area and they live close, and it's not something that they have sort of put a label on. It's kind of just happening. And it kind of happens because you're more open. And even though with this idea, there was a great article in the New York Times talking about a woman who, started dating a guy who lived on a boat. And, his idea of, was waiting for the weather to change to go out with the tide and knew it wasn't going anywhere. But because there was no expectations, it just rolled. It was so much fun. And she was saying, I didn't have this judgy piece about what it could be. It didn't have the labels that it seemed to have. Are we dating? Are we not dating? The casual, the fuck boys kind of hijacked casual, but for a lot of people declaring that they want something casual, that they're more open to whatever the possibilities is like, right? Being honest about something casual, what it might look like, it's just less pressure. There's a great book called Just Send the Text. Well, it's not a great book about Just Send the Text. And I've been telling everybody on the dating sites, just send it. Just stop worrying about how to be cool. What could he possibly thinking? What could she possibly thinking? Just ask. Just send the text. Just ask for some clarity and see what happens, because second guessing things and just saying, let's take the pressure way down, and that ability to be open-minded and saying that maybe conventional dating hasn't worked. Maybe I'm going to be okay with some kind of open relationship.
So you're suggesting people just be direct and say, look, I'm not looking for a relationship. I don't have the time to devote to a relationship, whatever their reasons are, but I am looking for occasional gratification.
Yes. Yes. And I see a lot with, with men too, but people coming out of long-term relationships, the last thing they want is a long-term relationship.
See, I think, but Sue, I know so many people, myself included, I would be terrified to have the conversation. It's not a conversation I was brought up realizing you could even have.
Right. And you're in a long-term stable relationship, but for a lot of people, they're scared about it. And we're working on skills to be able to do this. I'm doing a new event in April. I'm calling it quick, meaningful conversations, or authentic relating on steroids, right? It's having conversations that tackle this. Like I want to get better at saying, this is what I need, or I'm self-aware to go, I don't want to have to deal. I want a situationship. I don't want to have to deal with worried about, my parents or bringing somebody home to the kids. I don't want to have a label. I just want to get plowed occasionally. I want somebody to come over. I want to go for dinner with somebody. I want some companionship, and that's okay. And it's okay. And that's
Of course,
okay.
it's okay. It's just it's an unusual conversation, and not conversations that I think many of us have had leading up to, like you said, post pandemic. That conversation seems to be very much in the public for now.
But if you're a Gen X or Gen Z, the 46, or from Canada, Gen Z, the 46% are more open to experimentation and saying, this may be the new reality. So I'm following the dating pulse because I think dating is broken and what's new, what's working.
See, that's the problem. I'm so old. I'm Gen A, I think.
Yeah, I don't think you're that old because you and I are comparable, sweetheart. Yeah.
All right. All right. Yeah, that's true. I guess I just sorry.
Yeah.
Right. Hey, next up, you've got some cool local research, and I know that this podcast is heard around the world. We've got a massive audience, especially in Australia, but local to where you and I are situated here in Ottawa.
Dr. Peggy Kleinplatz, I've had lunch with her a couple of times. Lovely, lovely woman, lives in the Glebe. She is, does the sort of head of sexuality at the University of Ottawa. Did this book called Magnificent Sex. I think I have a copy electronically if people were really interested in reading. Sue at sexwithsue.com. And she talked about the secrets to better sex. She said that the reality is in the past, most sex therapists have been, the research has been indicated to try and take sex and make it less bad. But most people, when she does the research, are wanting deeper connections. They're wanting less technique focused, more playful, more erotic, more authenticity, more vulnerability, more intimacy. And, her line is great lovers are made, not born. And this idea that we're looking for, yes, this intimate, what we want underlining is passion, right? That the rational is to have low, and it's okay to have low desire for undesirable sex. So how do you again use your words to say your partner, the sex we have is mediocre at best? What can we do to make it better? I know, but
Oh
she comes up with
God.
this strategy. I have the book, right? I have the book, Magnificent Sex. Look, she's done the research to say, you go to a therapist and say, I want to compromise in the middle. And then neither partner wants to compromise. They feel like the therapist isn't hearing them and they're kind of resentful, both of them, because it's not what they want. So I said, I spend a lot of my times talking about the gray area in the middle. Like, if you really don't want it, can you send your partner out once a month to get a rub and tug? Like, seriously, I don't start with that. But for some people, that's a healthy solution. And not to say, well, you need to compromise and give it up, a couple times a month if they're going, I don't want to. Or I'm in a stage where I'm not feeling desire. How can you have magnificent sex? And Peggy has come up with the research around it and giving you some tools to create more playfulness. And she did a whole series on Zoom through the pandemic where she said, like, came up with little strategies to say, let's talk about play. And it's something that I talk about a lot because sex is adult play.
So, okay, I'm curious about this. When you have these conversations in a session with a couple who are struggling, and that woman who says to her husband, go to the rub and tug once a month. I'm okay with that. How long a process, and what's the success rate, by the way? Because I think most couples you talk to, they would be resistant to even entertaining that idea. How long is the process for them to sort of get to the point where, you know what, maybe that's not such a bad thing after all? And like, what percentage of the people you see that you suggest that to would actually go forward with that?
That's a fair question. And it doesn't start with that. So if they're coming to see me, there's been a problem for a long time. And people have come to the realization that it doesn't magically get better. And I'll tell you, it doesn't magically get better. So
Right.
you have to do something about it. So it's not going to So one person is saying, I don't want sex anymore, or I want it, once a month when the moon's in Venus and I've had a bath and I've had a couple glasses of wine and it's going to be pretty fast and vanilla. And their partner's going, I'm going to spontaneously combust. I have a sperm buildup and my head's going to explode. So there is that. And so you get to that stage where, and for me to say, no, to wife or to husband, you have to suck it up and put out. They're going, I don't want to. and I feel resentful that I have to do this. But I'm like, in a monogamous relationship, you want sex, you got to turn to your partner. I'm like, look, there are alternatives, right? Masturbation only goes so far. You can be involved in if your partner's using a sex toy, or, holding their hand, or, a medicinal hand job or blow job, those kinds of things. But if it's saying I need to be touched, when I was in Europe, going to a rub and tug was kind of like all the French guys, like, come on, it's not a big deal. It's just relax. It's just touch. It's
Yep.
it's skin. It's like no big deal. And, can you, I know a few of them who are very elegant, have other jobs, but occasionally will do a massage, on the side in a very classy way. It's going to cost you $150 or $160.
Right.
But if you don't smoke, you don't drink, you're going to you're going to drink less wine this month, but you're going to go get this incredible massage and a great touch at the end. And you're going to leave feeling 5 pounds lighter, and you want to you want that, and the partner's going, okay, they're married, these other people are married, it's just therapy. And if they can view it like that,
Well, and there you go. And like a therapy session, like my therapy sessions, they're $250 an hour,
yep, yeah,
and they don't have a happy ending. I can promise you.
they do. So maybe I need to think about a different kind of birthday gift for you. Yeah, I have a friend. But it's
Listen, I've got, and in Ottawa, and we're not exclusive, but our city, which is this uptight, everything, they deny sex everywhere. You don't have to look very far. These rub and tugs, as they're called, and I hate calling them that, but
Jack
there are
Shacks in the States, or yeah.
lots, and like people would be amazed how many of these places actually exist and how many people actually make a living doing this. It's everywhere. In fact, I've got one on board on my radio station as a sponsor, and I'm proud to have that because it fills a need. And yeah, if your partner's on board with it, and you get to go and experience that, even if they're not there. And by the way, they can be there. That is an option with some of the hosts and hostesses. But imagine the conversations you can have afterwards, and what that will do to, propel your own relationship together. That's hot. Come on, that's hot.
It is super hot. So that's gonna, we're looking at all of that, and I think, I don't know, I see it as a harmless pleasure. Now, not everybody's going to agree with me. I do. And I think, sex work is work, and really they are not running away with your partner. And if you can do it as a couple, or again, it's not a big deal. However, not everybody agrees with me, and I'm okay with that, because there are other options. This is one option about how to spice things up. But what I guess Peggy's saying is, don't try and compromise. Her research as a clinician, as a registered psychologist with couples around sex, is the traditional way that I was trained. I'm sure she was trained, which is just find a reasonable solution. Well, reasonable solution isn't working for anybody. So what do you do differently?
So it boils down to, these are very unconventional conversations that, it rings true with the cross-dressing conversation. That rings true with, finding other solutions.
And
We
not
just
letting
need to
your
get past these bugaboos. Yeah.
Yes, all that stuff.
Let's talk about writing erotica, because your pervy book club
Oh, join my
has taken on a life of its own.
Okay, if you want to join it, send me your email. I'll send you the book this month. We're reading Wetlands, German writer. She's born in England, and she's a television broadcaster. Sold over 1 million copies,
Okay.
and it's a bit crazy. I don't even want to get into, like, this starts with this 18-year-old in the hospital, having shaved around her rectum because she was having anal sex, and cut the hemorrhoid. Anyway, that's how it starts. It was crazy. It was crazy. We've had these crazy stories. Anyway, we get to talk about it. But I started this book club, and I got to tell you, everybody and their brother and their sister and their mother have come out of the woodwork and said, Sue, I've written erotica. Here it is. Will you do it? Will you cover my book in your book club? And I'm like, whoa, I must have literally 7 or 8 people like that I didn't know wrote erotica have written me saying, I read erotica.
Right? It's crazy. Go to Reddit. You would be dumbfounded to discover just how many people are submitting erotica to Reddit that they are writing. This is, I don't know if it's journaling or diaries or whatever. And I discovered this. We used to run, we called it Naughty Nights. And it was, we had a female and a male both reading erotic stories. And I asked them, I said, now, where are you getting a lot of this stuff? And they said, oh, friends just send it to me to have me read it. And it took all of about 2 seconds for me to discover I too have a lot of friends who are writing erotica. Yeah, it's a closeted thing, but it's becoming more and more normal. And like I said, Reddit is just one of the many outlets there where people can access what your friends are actually writing.
Well, this is an interview with Rachel, who is a long time. She's been writing erotica herself for 20 years. She's been an editor since 2004. She's
Oh,
got a
cool.
very well published book on how to write erotica. And my big complaint about it, and I get all these notes, and I'm like, I can't bring it to my book club. It's got some interesting ideas, but OMFG, does it need a editor? you know like you've got some interesting ideas, but man, you are too close to it. Does it need an editor? Good erotica pulls the reader in, gives them what they want, and keeps that interest all the way to the end, right? It stretches the limit of the reader's imagination,
Yep.
not necessarily the writer's imagination. So I want to play some of this clip because I
Okay.
got to do an interview with Rachel about how do you write erotica from the best in the country, how she's doing it, what's going on, and she is the definitive erotica editor. And here's what she has to say.
Well, I think one thing is you're never going to please everyone. I mean, even people who are very like-minded, who maybe share the same age demographics or interests. I say this as someone during, it was either 2020 or 2021 or both. I was in two erotica Zoom book clubs. One was feminist erotica and one was general erotica, but it was mostly women in their 40s and 50s and a little bit older reading. I mean, we all had differing opinions. I think it's so personal what kinds of writing appeals to you. In one of our book clubs, we read Anais Nin, and some people thought it was sexy, and some people thought, this is very, well, I thought, I was like, this is kind of dated, and it didn't appeal to me as much. I was glad I read it as a historical document. So I don't think you can try to appeal to everyone. I think what you can do, though, is, not shrink away from the sex scenes, go there. Like if your character, let's say, has a foot fetish, two things. I don't think that you are only appealing to readers with a foot fetish, because just because I don't have a foot fetish, if you write well, I'll read your foot fetish. I mean, there might be some things that I just personally are my, no go. I don't want to read them. But I think a lot of readers are open-minded. They'll give something a chance if the premise is intriguing, or, the back cover or the front cover or the plot. They'll give it a chapter or two, and then maybe you can draw them in and make them think, okay, like I want to know what happens next. And I think there's kind of two audiences for erotica. I mean, some people just kind of want to do the equivalent of fast forwarding in porn to get to the sex scene.
Yeah.
But some people want to be along for the ride, and they want to know everything else that's happening too, that's leading up to the sex scene, that's happening after. They want the juicy parts, and they want to follow these characters. And a trilogy that I highly recommend, your book club might like this, is called Secret. It's S.E.C.R.E.T trilogy by L. Marie Adeline. And it's about this group of women who form to help other women fulfill their fantasies. And usually the women that they approach are down on their luck. They've been through rough times, and they have them write a list of their fantasies, and they help them fulfill them. And why I really love that book, there's amazingly hot sex scenes. There's a scene on a plane where this woman goes in the cockpit, and her and the pilot have this tryst. But there's also this element of wish fulfillment that, you wish that people who are mistreated by society get their fantasies fulfilled. And then also the women write down their fantasies, and it's clear what they want, but then the way they get fulfilled is surprising to them, and it's surprising to the reader. I think there's so many ways you can go about writing a sex scene or writing about a fantasy. It's not, I mean, it's formulaic in that maybe if it's going to be about spanking, there's spanking, but you don't know what they're going to use to spank someone, or how it's going to feel, or are they going to do it in a teasing way, like sort of tap tap and then really get to spanking harder? Or are they going to start out harder and then go softer, and the person's like, no, do it harder again? So I think there's just so much variety. And sometimes authors say to me, yeah, but which one should I pick? Like, what's the ticket to perfect erotica? And I don't think there is one. I think it's up to you. It's your preference or what you think your characters would want. And if you keep writing long enough, you can write various versions of those stories. So, you might be talking about someone attending an orgy, maybe it's their first time, but then maybe another time you write a story about an orgy and it's someone who's going to an orgy for the 100th time. And
Right.
are those different? They're probably a different experience, but both could be sexy, So I think you can keep yourself your creative juices flowing by mixing things up. Or maybe you usually write from a woman's point of view. Maybe you try writing from a man's point of view, or a non-binary person's point of view, and you can just keep trying different things till you find the thing that you want to write.
All right, there's How to Write Erotica. Amazing. And I love what you said about editors, by the way, because can we just talk 50 Shades of Grey for a second here? Okay, listen, horribly written book. Absolutely brutally written book. You want to talk about case in point for someone who needed an editor. How many times in that book did you, and I'm sure you read that book. How
I
many
didn't
times?
finish it because it was so bad.
Right?
She asked me, actually, that was the question. She asked me, did I finish it? And I'm like, no, I couldn't stomach it by the
She
editing.
blushed scarlet. I'd never heard that term before, and it's every second paragraph in 50 Shades of Grey, and it just makes me absolutely crazy.
Yes.
Editing is important, and I'm someone who's in the middle of writing a book, and I'm pretty good with words, but yeah, you need that second set of eyes, or even a third or fourth set of eyes on your work, just to really get it down to what the average, because people don't, people read things very differently than how it comes out of your brain. You need that.
Anyway, it's if you're sending it and you think it's good, or you've had a couple of other people read it first and have given you criticism, and you've fixed it, happy to look for it from the Pervy Book Club. Send it to us, Sue@sexwithsue.com. We'll have a read, and I love it when Milky does his big baritone and reads for us. And maybe if you do something really good, we'll read it on air.
Oh, if you're well behaved, you'll get a reading from the deep-throated Milky. Oh, that didn't sound right.
I think everybody will get it.
I hope everybody gets it. That's the point of this podcast, to help you get it and get it right and get it more. Sue McGarvey, you are absolutely incredible. I love talking to you. Every single week we do this. It is called Turned On the Podcast. Bye, Sue.
Mwah.
Hey, if you got a question for Sue, you got comments on the podcast, we're on Google, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on iHeart, we're on Amazon Music. Ask your smart speaker to play Turned On the Podcast. We'd love to hear from you. What's the email address, Sue?
Sue@sexwithsue.com.
Forward to another conversation a week from now.